Coming up on a newscast tonight, in a meeting with top security officials, President Park Geun-hye discusses North Korea's SLBM test and reportedly calls for a stern response against the regime if provoked. Korea's two main rival parties passed a series of economy-related bills this afternoon and adopted a resolution denouncing Japan's efforts to distort history. And President Park urges rival parties to approve the Public Employee Pension Reform Bill, comparing the current pension system to a time bomb that will explode and leave future generations with a pile of debt. Stay with us for these stories and more.
Hello and welcome to Primetime News on this Tuesday, May 12th. I'm Hwang Ji-hye.
And I'm Daniel Choy. Thank you for joining us. Tensions continue to mount over North Korea's recent experimental firing of a submarine-launched ballistic missile. One
clear indication of how seriously South Korea is taking the development. The presidential office of Cheong Wa Dae convened an emergency meeting today for the first time in a year. Laah Hyun-kyung starts us off.
North Korea test-firing a submarine-launched ballistic missile poses a serious challenge to East Asia's stability. Those are the words of President Park Geun-hye at an emergency meeting on Tuesday with members of her cabinet, including Defense Minister Han Min-koo.
As for the North's recent threat to strike our vessels in the West Sea, the president has ordered the military to be ready at all times and sternly strike back should Pyongyang attack.
Meanwhile, Seoul's defense ministry also reassured that SLBM threats could be handled.
The South Korean military is capable of targeting and destroying ballistic missiles launched from North Korean submarines in advance.
An unnamed defense ministry official said Tuesday, though, that the military is planning on expanding its anti-submarine warfare capability. The official said the military will improve its underwater listening posts, which help detect and track submarines, and enhance its sonar technology. Responding to calls by some experts to work more closely with its allies, the official also hinted at a possible three-way meeting between the defense chiefs of South Korea, the U.S., and Japan. That meeting will likely take place at an annual defense dialogue in Singapore later this month. Laah Hyun-kyung, Arirang News.
And frustration is reaching a boiling point at the National Assembly as rival political parties continue to wrangle over reforms to the country's pension system. But today, Parliament finally made some headway, passing 3 bills and adopting 2 resolutions involving Japan. For more, we turn to our Ji Myung-gil.
Lawmakers passed 3 economy-related bills at the National Assembly on Tuesday afternoon. The biggest issue on the table was a bill to revise the tax code, which drew a strong backlash from taxpayers when it was adopted last year, because many workers had to pay more in tax instead of getting refunds. The law revision will give salaried workers a larger tax refund than they would have gotten with the current law. It is expected to benefit more than 6 million workers, and companies will file for the refund for their workers and include it in their salaries for May. The total amount to be refunded is expected to be more than $400 million. One of the other 2 bills passed Tuesday allows local governments to issue bonds to finance free childcare programs. The other bill seeks to protect commercial building tenants. Lawmakers will vote on another 60 livelihood bills at another session at the end of the month. Lawmakers also adopted 2 resolutions denouncing Japan. The first condemns Japan for trying to list coal mines, shipyards, and other industrial facilities as UNESCO World Heritage Sites. The list of facilities includes 7 sites where Koreans were forced into labor during World War II. The second resolution denounces Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe for failing to issue an apology for Japan's wartime sex slavery program during his address to the U.S. Congress last month. Abe made no direct mention in the speech of Japan's sexual enslavement of Korean, Chinese, and other Asian women, foregoing a chance to resolve a long-standing historical issue with Japan's neighbors. Ji Myung-gil, Arirang News.
And today, President Park urged lawmakers to quickly pass the bill to reform Korea's public employee pension system, saying it's the most urgent task at hand. Our Choi-Sun reports.
At Tuesday's cabinet meeting, President Park called on the country's main rival parties to approve a proposal to reform the public employee pension system to avoid leaving future generations with a pile of debt. She compared the deficit-ridden system to a time bomb that will eventually explode and wreak havoc on taxpayers if the reforms are not carried out, which will increase the financial burden on the public.
우리나라 미래는 어떻게 될 거며 또 우리 재정은 어쩔 건가 이런 거에 대해서 심각하게 생각을 해야 한다고 봅니다. 이것만 생각하면 한숨이 나와요.
She also reiterated her opposition to linking a plan to reform the National Pension Fund to the public servant pension reforms, saying more time is needed to discuss the economic and social effects of increasing the national pension coverage to 50% of a subscriber's average income. The ruling and opposition parties continue to lock horns over this issue. In fact, the president took direct aim at the opposition's demand to include the national pension increase in the reform bill. While the opposition suggests a different calculation, the presidential office says raising the coverage to 50% of a person's average income will lead to additional taxes in the amount of $1.5 trillion.
빚을 줄이는 노력을 외면하면서 국민한테 세금을 거두려고 하는 것은 너무나 염치가 없는 일입니다.
It was a rare show of frustration from the president, who has urged swift passage of reforms to the public pension system. It's likely that she will not try to turn public sentiment away from the main opposition party's push to link the national pension coverage to the reforms by highlighting the potential strain on state finances and the increased taxes on the public. Choi-Sun, Arirang News.
Moving over to the ongoing investigation into a bribery scandal involving the former Prime Minister Wankoo, Lee will appear at the prosecutor's office for questioning on Thursday morning. Prosecutors say Lee compiled with their summons without much resistance. The former Prime Minister is accused of taking around $27,000 in illegal campaign funds from the late Cheong Wa Dae, the CEO of Gyeongnam Enterprises, in 2013. The late businessman left behind a list with the names of 8 politicians who allegedly took bribes from him. The former prime minister is the second official on the list to be questioned, following Gyeongsangnam-do Province Governor Hwang Ji-hye.
Let's shift our focus to North Korea now. There were various speculations after North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's aunt Kim Kyung-hee suddenly disappeared from the public eye in 2013. A North Korean defector now claims that she was poisoned last year under a direct order from Kim Jong-un himself. Our Kim Hyun-bin has more on this anonymous tip.
In an interview with CNN that aired Tuesday, the defector says Kim Jong-un gave the order for his aunt to be poisoned on May 5th or 6th of last year, adding that only members of Kim's bodyguard unit, Unit 974, knew about it. Park, a pseudonym used to protect his identity, says the young leader wanted to silence his aunt, Kim Kyung-hee, as she had complained angrily for months after her husband Chang Song-taek was executed in December of 2013. Chang was the second most powerful man in the communist regime, before he was executed for counter-revolutionary acts and obstructing the nation's economic affairs. Kim Kyung-hee, the only sister of former communist leader Kim Jong-il, disappeared from the public eye in September 2013, a few months prior to her husband's death, raising questions about her fate. The speculation at the time was that she had a fatal stroke, a heart attack, or had committed suicide. South Korea's spy agency said in February 2014 that she was still alive. The agency also claims that at least 15 senior officials have been executed so far this year, as the communist leader struggles to maintain his grip on power. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
But an online newspaper exclusively focusing on North Korean issues, Daily NK, refutes CNN's interview with the North Korean defector, saying Kim Kyung-hee is still in fact alive and taking treatment for a nerve disorder in Pyongyang, citing its own sources. Let's move on to a different story now. North Korea's ceremonial head of state Kim Young-nam reportedly said inter-Korean relations can improve if the two sides show their sincerity through their actions. This is according to South Korea's ruling Saenuri Party representative and special presidential envoy Yoon Sang-hyun, who met with Kim while attending a ceremony in Russia, marking the 70th anniversary of the defeat of Nazi Germany. Yoon added that Kim's health seems to have deteriorated with age and said the 87-year-old seems to have secretly visited Russia to receive medical treatment earlier this year.
Korea has not had too much to get excited about in recent years, but the buds of a slow recovery may be sprouting. In its monthly assessment of the domestic economy, the finance ministry said key economic indicators like consumption and output are picking up. Kim Min-ji has the details.
The signals are weak, but showing signs of recovery. That's the finance ministry's diagnosis of the Korean economy. In its monthly Green Book report released on Tuesday, the ministry said the pace of increase in employment has slowed and consumer prices are down due to low global oil prices, but overall major economic indicators such as industrial output and consumption are steadily improving. The report shows private consumption rose 0.6% in the first quarter of this year from the previous quarter, while it rose 1.5% from a year earlier. Department store sales edged up 1.5% in April from a year ago, while credit card transactions jumped over 15%. Domestically produced vehicles saw a nearly 3% rise in sales last month from a year ago, while gasoline sales rose around 9%. Industrial output went up nearly 2% in March from the previous year.
To some extent, the gains can be attributed to a base effect from last April's ferry disaster. But three key rate cuts since last August and government stimulus measures are also supporting the slow-paced recovery that will likely continue into the second quarter.
However, the expert also pointed to the weak Japanese currency and delays in the recovery of major economies as external factors that could weigh on the economy moving forward. Those factors have already lowered the competitiveness of Korea's exports, once the pillars of the economy, and data shows that exports fell more than 8% in April from a year ago. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Korea's overseas direct investment rose 5.2% from the previous year during the first quarter. The Ministry of Strategy and Finance said Tuesday that Korean companies invested a total of $7.72 billion abroad from January to March. A huge chunk of the investments were made in North America, including the United States, at nearly 40%, followed by Asia and South America. By industry, retail and wholesale investments jumped more than 3 times from the same period last year, with more Korean businesses investing in the United States and Singapore. A ministry official says Korea's overseas direct investment is expected to increase this year as the global economy regains its growth momentum. And Korean DRAM makers hit another record high in the global market. Market researcher DRAM Exchange said Tuesday the combined global market share of Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix in the first quarter totaled 71.7%, rising 1.3 percentage points from the previous quarter. DRAM Exchange predicts the Korean players' global market dominance will continue as they have been investing heavily in their technology and facilities. Meanwhile, the total revenue of the global DRAM market in the first quarter was $12 billion, dropping 7.5% from the previous quarter. President Park has been drumming up the importance of economic diplomacy, reflected in her recent visits to the Middle East and South America.
That's right, and based on the accomplishments made abroad, she talked about expanding on them to boost Korea's economic development. For this report, we turn to our Kwon So-ah.
The Korean economy can only develop by continuously reaching out into the global market. This is what President Park Geun-hye stressed at a meeting on economic diplomacy on Tuesday, attended by key economic organizations and related ministries.
우리는 좁은 내수 시장의 한계를 극복하기 위해서 경제 개발 초기 단계부터 수출 주도형 성장 전략을 적극적으로 추진해 왔습니다. 그때뿐 아니라 지금도 대한민국의 운명은 이렇게 국내뿐만 아니라 세계 시장으로 눈을 돌려야만 발전할 수 있다고 생각을 합니다.
President Park's focus on economic diplomacy was reflected in her trips to the Middle East and South America, which secured $6.4 billion in the first half of the year and included the signing of an IT MOU worth $14 million annually. To further expand on these accomplishments, the president proposed 3 main directives. She said small and mid-sized companies should play a leading role in exports. New industries with high added value have to be explored, and exports in manpower, culture, and software need to be strengthened. President Park pointed out that just 34% of exports come from SMEs, and less than 3% of SMEs in the country export their goods. She said with Korea having the 3rd largest FTA network, many doors are now open, but that the country should not sit back but take on new challenges in the global arena. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
And at the meeting, President Park Geun-hye also touched upon the importance of exporting Korea's cultural contents.
We're proud to say that expected to lead the charge is Korea's only fully English broadcasting station, Arirang TV, the station you're watching right now. Our Connie Kim takes a closer look.
During Tuesday's economic diplomacy meeting, President Park Geun-hye highlighted a recent study that showed when $100 worth of cultural products are shipped out, exports of consumer goods will jump by more than $400. In line with this and the growing importance of cultural content, Arirang TV is vowing to be at the forefront of promoting Korean culture overseas.
Moving beyond K-pop, we plan to create programs that incorporate information and communications technologies and use animation, internet-based games, and educational content to reach over 100 million households.
Arirang has already made inroads into the South American market, sealing an MOU with Brazil's Hegi TV and Peru's America TV in April. The Culture Ministry is also backing the station's mission.
A Hallyu preparation committee led by civilians will be established in May. When the group is formed, Arirang TV is expected to help serve as an overseas promotion platform.
On the back of these business projects, Korea's only English broadcaster plans to continue to expand its distribution channels and become a provider of global programs. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
And for more top international headlines, we now connect to our Paul Yi at the News Center.
Our focus today, another series of earthquakes hit Nepal. Greece raises the alarm on its debt crisis, and one of Picasso's greatest works hits the auction block.
Well, first off, let's start in Nepal, Paul. Another natural disaster strikes that South Asian country, and this is the second major quake there within a span of nearly 3 weeks. Paul, could you tell us about the damages so far?
Well, the Nepalese government says this latest seismic attack was powerful enough to trigger landslides and topple buildings. Authorities say the death toll has reached 42, while another 1,117 people have been injured. This as the country has been desperately trying to recover and rebuild ahead of the monsoon rains next month. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, the 7.3 magnitude quake struck near Mount Everest early Tuesday. It was then followed by 2 separate aftershocks. In response, the United Nations Humanitarian Agency said they were fearing the worst about the impact of this latest disaster.
The first one came out as a red alert. Red alert is like the first one we had in April. That means that it's very severe earthquake. It's in a highly populated area. So honestly, right now we fear the worst.
Meanwhile, Seoul's foreign ministry says they have received no reports of Korean nationals being among the fresh list of casualties. More than 8,000 people were killed by the 7.8 magnitude earthquake that struck on April 25th. It is estimated to have been 6 times more powerful than Tuesday's quake. And turning now to Europe, Greece's debt crisis is officially critical, as the government is now at risk of running out of money in 2 weeks' time if it cannot reach a deal with its international creditors. Speaking Monday from Brussels, the Greek finance minister Yanis Varoufakis called his country's financial situation terribly urgent. This as signs of a major breakthrough in negotiations still appears out of reach.
What really matters is gaining some sort of agreement with the IMF and the ECB in regards to further funding, and this undoubtedly is reliant upon Greece ultimately kowtowing to those two and ensuring that they meet the requirements.
In the meantime, the Greek government will reportedly be forced to use an emergency fund to meet its next debt repayment. The International Monetary Fund is calling on Athens to come up with $845 million by Tuesday. And finally, a Picasso oil painting from over 60 years ago has broken the record for the most expensive artwork ever sold at auction. The final hammer fell at Christie's in New York Monday at the historic price of more than $179 million. A fierce bidding war took place over a span of 11 minutes, driving up the cost far beyond its original estimate.
We always knew that it was going to break the world record price, actually, which was achieved here for a triptych by Bacon only last year at $142 million. It comes as no surprise that this picture, by the genius of 20th century painting, the Mozart, if you like, of 20th century painting, in my mind, Picasso, should sell for $180 million. It's a wonderful, wonderful work.
The iconic painting was part of the auction house's special sale, which included several works by renowned artists from Monet to Warhol. Collectors from across Europe, Asia, and the U.S. all competed for the high-end pieces, with a combined lot fetching a total of over $700 million. And that wraps up our look at international stories for now. I'll see you back here tomorrow night.
Most of the rain clouds over the peninsula have cleared out, but strong winds remain, with advisories in place for areas in the central parts of the country, including here in the capital. And gusty conditions are forecast to stick around until tomorrow morning. But temperatures will make a big jump. It will feel more like early summer tomorrow afternoon, especially for the southern regions, including Daegu, where the high will soar to 30 degrees Celsius. So overall, we can expect to have warmer conditions under sunny skies. But beware, the UV index will be high to very high across the nation, so be sure to put on the sunscreen and stay protected if you're headed out tomorrow. And as for Wednesday's reading, the high in Seoul and Busan will rise to 24, while Daegu and Gwangju peak at 30 and 27 respectively. And as for the other regions, Daejeon and Jeju Island should see a high of 25 and 26, while Dokdo rises to 24. Well, it seems like warm weather should continue for the entire week under a good amount of sunshine. Well, that's all for Korea, and here's international weather for viewers around the globe.
I heard it's rated as one of the top 15 fountain shows in the world, so be sure to catch that if you can. I heard the schedule can be rather flexible and it changes accordingly. Well, that brings us to the end of our newscast. Thank you so much for staying with us. I'm Daniel Choy.
And I'm Hwang Ji-hye. We hope you'll join us at the same time tomorrow. Goodbye for now.